I moved to this quiet suburban neighborhood last summer. I thought it would help me recharge after feeling burned out from city life. I was 34 and working from home as a graphic designer. The place was nice, with rows of modest homes, tall oak trees, and nearby hiking trails. I liked the calm atmosphere. I never imagined I would end up thinking about that summer in a completely different way. Late one evening, while I was stuck on a design project, I noticed strange blue lights flashing from my neighbor's house. At first, I thought it was a party. It felt odd since I hadn't seen them before. But the flashing didn't stop. I could see it flickering through the blinds. My heart raced, and I felt a creeping worry inside me. Days turned into weeks, and the lights changed. They became more alarming. I started hearing these deep thudding noises at night, like someone hitting a wall. Occasionally, I caught strange shadows moving in front of their windows, darting too quickly for my eyes to focus. I felt cold sweat trickle down my back, but I pushed it aside. Maybe there was a logical reason, I thought. One evening, I heard muffled arguing coming from their yard. It floated through the air, heavy and strange. I had to strain to hear, but I caught snippets of angry voices. Then it went silent as soon as I moved closer to the fence. I felt a chill, but didn't want to be paranoid, so I brushed it aside. Why would they stop just because I listened? Weeks passed, and the strange events turned darker. The thick atmosphere felt heavy around their house. I could see the lights flickering at odd hours. My anxiety grew, sitting heavy in my chest. I felt a pull, as if I needed to know what was happening. Did I really want to dig deeper? Then one night, the blue lights grew brighter, flashing so fast I thought they would explode. My heartbeat quickened, matching the flickering glow. I stepped outside, the cool air sending shivers down my spine. The thumping sounds were now louder, like something alive vibrating in the night. As I stood there, staring, the lights suddenly cut off. Darkness swallowed their house, and in that moment, I spotted a silhouette at the window, just watching me. It felt like a punch in the gut. I blinked, shaken, my breath catching in my throat. Then I heard the soft, chilling voice from the shadows in my yard. "You shouldn't be watching." Those words sent chills down my spine. I stumbled back, my stomach twisting in fear. I never should have looked so closely. I turned and rushed inside, locking the door behind me. Part of me wanted to reach out and knock, but I knew I should leave it alone. Why couldn't I just ignore it? Why wasn't I able to turn away? That summer changed me, and the strange blue lights still haunt my thoughts. The next morning felt heavy. I woke up with the weight of the night pressing down on me. Sleep had barely come, and the odd voice still echoed in my mind. I made coffee and glanced out the kitchen window, hoping to find everything normal again. But my neighbor's house sat shrouded in silence. The windows were dark, and the yard was still. That unease wrapped around me like a blanket. I forced myself to work, but the designs on my screen blurred together. My mind kept wandering back to those shadows, to the tension in the air. What was happening over there? I needed to know more. I decided to take a walk. Maybe it would clear my head. I headed down the sidewalk, the sun shining bright, but not quite warming my skin. As I passed my neighbor's home, I caught a glimpse of movement in the garage. I hesitated. Should I approach? My heart raced at the thought. I decided to take a chance and walked closer. The garage door was slightly ajar. I could hear faint sounds, metal clinking and a low hum filling the space. I held my breath and peeked through the gap. Inside, I saw a figure, half hidden by tools and boxes. Their back was turned to me. I couldn't make out any features, but the person was dressed in dark clothes. They were focused on what looked like a small machine, something I had never seen before. It had flashing lights, blue, similar to those I had seen at night. My pulse quickened. I couldn't just stand there. I had to know what they were doing. But then a noise made me freeze. The figure turned slightly, and I caught a glimpse of their face. It was a young woman, but her expression wasn't one of surprise. She looked expectant, as if she'd been waiting for me to appear. I felt a pull to step inside, but that sense of dread crept back. I took a step back, but the woman's eyes locked onto mine. It was unsettling. I didn't want her to catch me watching. I turned and rushed back home, every part of me screaming to get away. When I got inside, I slammed the door behind me, heart racing. I squeezed my eyes shut, trying to shake off the image of her face. Who were they? What were they doing? This whole situation felt wrong, but I couldn't let it go. Later, I paced the living room, my mind racing. I opened my laptop, searching for any information on my neighbors. I needed answers. The sudden need to understand filled me. My curiosity was insatiable. But as I scrolled through social media, I stumbled upon a local news article about a series of bizarre occurrences in the neighborhood. People reporting strange noises, lights, even sightings of mysterious figures. My hand shook as I read the comments below. Then, I saw something that sent a chill up my spine. They're not who they say they are. That was the moment I understood I was in deeper than I imagined. I felt the walls closing in, the air thicker around me. I had to confront it, whatever it was. But just as I resolved to take action, the power went out. Darkness enveloped my home. Then came the tapping on my door, soft, rhythmic, as if someone was knocking, just waiting for me to answer. I stood frozen, heart thudding in my chest. The rhythmic tapping on the door felt like a countdown. Every knock echoed in the silence, demanding my attention. I thought about ignoring it, but the urge to know what was happening clawed at me. I took a cautious step toward the door, my breath shaky. "Hello?" I called out, my voice sounding foreign in the quiet. The tapping stopped. There was silence for a moment that felt like an eternity. Then a voice, soft and eerily calm, came from the other side. "Open the door. We need to talk." The hair on the back of my neck stood up. I recognized that voice. It was the woman from the garage. How had she found me? Panic surged through me. I quickly scanned for something to defend myself with, but all I saw was the heavy wooden chair across the room. "Please," she said, her voice almost pleading. "I promise, I'm not here to hurt you." But how could I believe her? I could already feel the weight of her gaze pressing down on me, even through the door. My hand hovered over the doorknob, the cold metal biting into my skin. "Who are you?" I managed to ask, my voice barely above a whisper. "I can explain everything," she replied, "but not here." Before I could respond, there was a loud crash outside. It sounded like glass shattering, both jarring and terrifying. My heart raced even faster, and instinct kicked in. I needed to get out of the house. Ignoring the woman at the door, I dashed toward the back of my home, my mind racing as I debated my options. I considered the window in my bedroom. It wasn't far to the ground. But as I moved, I heard footsteps behind me, quick and light, gaining speed. "Wait!" she called, her urgency pulling me to a halt. I turned, preparing for a fight, but she was no longer just a figure hiding in shadows. She stood only a few feet away, determination etched across her face. "Listen to me. There are things happening that you don't understand, and they're coming for you." My heart sank. "Who? What are you talking about?" "Just let me explain," she urged, glancing nervously over her shoulder. Suddenly her composure shifted, and fear flickered in her eyes. "They're here." Before I could process her words, a noise erupted in the front of the house. The door rattled violently, a heavy force trying to break in. My breath caught in my throat. "Go! We have to move," she said, urgency sweeping over her features. I hesitated, fear constricting my thoughts. "How do I know I can trust you?" "Because I'm your only chance," she insisted, pulling my arm. "Right now you don't have time to question." With the door shaking again, I knew I had only one choice. I followed her out the back door into the night, my mind racing with questions and disbelief. I looked back at my home, shadows flickering just out of reach. That was when I saw it. A luminous figure pooling in my front yard, pulsing with energy, eyes bright and unyielding. Whatever was happening, it was only just beginning. We sprinted across the lawn, the grass damp beneath my bare feet. The night air felt heavy, thick with tension. I glanced back at my house, the door still rattling. It wouldn't hold for long. "Where do we go?" I gasped, struggling to keep pace with her. "Just keep running! Trust me!" she urged, glancing over her shoulder. We veered towards the trees lining the border of my yard. Their trunks loomed, dark and twisted, but they offered some cover. As we ducked beneath the foliage, the sounds of chaos faded slightly, replaced by the rustling leaves. "What's happening? Why are they after me?" I demanded, my voice low but frantic. "I promise I'll explain everything," she said, her expression grave. "But we need to get to a safe place first. They'll track us." "Track us? Who?" The questions piled up, each one racing ahead of the last. I felt nauseous. "Just focus on running," she replied, urging me deeper into the woods. The branches snagged at my clothes, but I pushed onward. Every snap of a twig made me flinch. I felt like prey. Finally, we broke into a small clearing, lit by a waning moon. It was eerily quiet, much too quiet. I could hear my heart pounding in my ears. The woman motioned for me to stop, pointing towards a small, abandoned cabin. "In there, quickly!" I hesitated again, my instincts screaming that this was a trap. "What if it's not safe?" "I promise you it's better than being out here. Please, we don't have much time." I nodded, fear taking a back seat to survival. We dashed towards the cabin, the rotting wood creaking under our weight. Inside, it smelled musty and old. We stumbled into a dim room illuminated by the faint light filtering through the broken window. "Lock the door," she instructed, practically shoving me forward. I fumbled with the old bolt, finally securing it just as I heard a noise outside, a low, guttural growl that made my stomach drop. My pulse quickened, and I glanced at her, eyes wide with fear. "What is that?" "Whatever it is, it's hunting you," she replied. "Why?" The woman took a deep breath. "Because you've seen too much." I shook my head, confusion swirling. "What are you talking about?" But before she could answer, the cabin started to shake, the walls quaking as the growl intensified. I grasped the nearest object, an old rusted pipe lying on the floor, ready to use it as a weapon if I had to. "What do we do?" I asked, panic creeping into my voice. "Stay quiet," she whispered urgently. "If they find us, you need to be ready to run." Then came the sound, a series of rhythmic thuds like something large and heavy was moving around outside. It was coming closer. I felt my breath hitch. Whatever it was, it knew we were inside. I turned to her, searching for hope in her eyes, but all I saw was fear. That's when I heard it again, the low growl, now closer than ever, echoing around us like a chilling promise. The cabin shuddered again, and the growl reverberated in my bones. I gripped the rusted pipe tighter, my knuckles whitening. "What is that thing?" I whispered. "It's something far worse than humans. You need to understand." A loud crash interrupted her, something heavy slamming against the cabin door. The wood groaned as if it were protesting the force. My breath caught in my throat. "We have to find another way out," I shouted, panic rising in my chest. She shook her head, eyes darting toward the window. "No, we can't move. We have to wait for the moment." "For what moment?" I felt frantic. The cabin felt like a coffin. Her gaze snapped back to mine, intensity flashing in her eyes. "There's a reason they can't come in here. This place holds an ancient magic." "Magic?" I scoffed, heart racing. "That's ridiculous. None of this makes sense." Another crash jolted us. The door splintered, just a crack, letting slivers of moonlight seep into the shadowy room. A low hiss followed the growl. "They're not just looking for you. They're desperate." She gestured for me to stay low, inching closer to the window. Listen carefully. You need to trust me. The things that hunt you, they fear what you can do. What do you mean? Your eyes, they've seen things that could give them power. You are a key to something. I shook my head, bewilderment swirling. Key to what? Before she could answer, the door broke through with a thundering crash. The force sent splinters flying, the creature outside advancing, a hulking shadow now framed in the doorframe, its eyes glowing like embers. I froze, instincts screaming to run, but all I could manage was to grip the pipe. The creature sniffed the air, a terrible hunger evident in its growl. My heart raced, my body felt heavy with fear. That's it, the woman snapped suddenly, her voice breaking through the fog of my terror. We need to create a distraction. You need to move fast. Where? I stammered, barely able to comprehend her words. Just trust me. When I count to 3, you will grab the lantern from that shelf and throw it. It might buy us a few seconds. Ready? I gulped, torn between the desire to flee and the need to comply. What if it doesn't work? Then we fight! She shouted, glaring at the creature as it took a step forward. Okay, I said, adrenaline surging. 1! I turned towards the shelf, eyeing a dusty lantern clinging to the wall. 2! The creature's growl dropped lower, more guttural. It was mere moments away. 3! I lunged, grabbed the lantern, and threw it with all my might. The glass shattered as it hit the floor, igniting the dry wood in an instant. Flames erupted, licking at the walls, casting frantic shadows across the horror before us. Now! Go! She yelled, shoving me toward the back of the cabin. I ran, but not before glancing back at the creature, now locked in a battle between instinct and the encroaching fire. It hesitated, eyes glimmering with uncertainty. Keep going, she shouted, urgency pulsing through her words. As I darted to the back, I had no idea where we were headed next. Then I heard her voice fade behind me. Remember what I said about the magic. Magic. I hadn't thought about details, just about survival, and now I was questioning everything I thought I knew. That's when I reached the back door. It swung open to the darkness beyond. I stepped outside, the cool air hitting me like a wave. But it wasn't a moment of relief. It felt like I had just entered the eye of an even worse storm. And there, illuminated by flickering flames, I saw a figure emerge from the trees, watching me with piercing eyes. And I knew then that whatever had been chasing me had not given up yet. I turned to run, but that figure stepped closer, breaking the space between us. It was a man, or at least he looked like one, but something about him felt off. His movements were too smooth, too calculated. The fire behind me threw shadows across his face, but I could still see his eyes, dark and endless like pits. Don't run, he said, his voice calm yet void of warmth. You're just making it worse for yourself. I stumbled backward. Who are you? What do you want? My heart pounded so hard I was afraid it might burst out of my chest. There's no need to be afraid. I'm not the one you should fear, he replied, glancing at the cabin where smoke billowed upward. But I can help you, if you listen. I felt a surge of anger. Help me? You think I'd trust someone who just slinked out of the woods while I was escaping a monster? His lips curled into an unsettling smile. You're not understanding. I'm here because of you. You're the key to stopping them. Stop who? I asked, my voice shaking. The others, the creatures you're running from. He stepped closer, and I felt a prickling sensation ripple through my skin. Something was very wrong about him. The flames from the cabin flared, illuminating the area around us. I caught a glimpse of the creatures lurking near the tree line, their eyes glowing with hunger. I needed to get away. Let me be clear, I said, backing away. I don't need your help. He sighed, a sound filled with both exasperation and pity. You don't have a choice. They're coming for you, and soon. You need to understand what you are. You need to embrace it. Before I could respond, a roar echoed through the woods. The sound sent a chill through my veins. I turned, the sight of the creature looming close to the cabin making my stomach twist. I had no time to think. "Just listen," he insisted, grabbing my wrist. "You have power within you, power they want to steal. If you can tap into that, you can protect yourself." I yanked my arm away, panic rising. "What power? I don't understand any of this." He paused, his eyes narrowing. "You have to let go of what you think you know. You're stronger than this." My mind was racing. I felt trapped. "I can't do this." His gaze softened, and for a brief moment I saw a flicker of sincerity. "Yes, you can. You have to. Just believe." But before I could respond, the growl of the creatures grew louder, echoing around us. They were closing in. "Stay here," he said urgently, pushing me into the bushes beside the path. "I'll draw them away. When the time comes, trust yourself." "No, don't go," I protested, but he was already fading into the underbrush. Then I heard the sounds of branches snapping, hissing voices calling his name. My heart raced with dread. I had to do something. I had to stop this. That's when I noticed something glinting in the moonlight, half buried in the dirt. I bent down, heart pounding, and pulled out an old silver pendant. It felt warm against my palm. "What the heck is this?" I muttered. Then, with the growls echoing closer, I made a decision. If I was going to survive, I'd have to embrace whatever this was. I slipped the pendant into my pocket. I didn't know what it meant, but I felt a spark of something. Perhaps it was hope, or perhaps it was the power he mentioned. Either way, I had to find that man and figure out what was going on before it was too late. Then everything went dark. I woke up on the forest floor, the scent of damp earth filling my lungs. My heart raced, and I shot up, scanning the dark edges of the woods. The air was heavy, charged with an unsettling energy. Memories of the man and the creatures flooded back, and I felt a surge of fear. Where had he gone? What had happened? The fire had burned low, but faint glimmers of light flickered in the distance, and I felt drawn to them. I stood, brushing dirt off my clothes, and tried to shake off the overwhelming sense of dread. Each rustle in the bushes made my pulse quicken. I was not alone. I moved cautiously, trying to stay low and quiet. The pendant burned a hole in my pocket, still warm against my leg. What was I supposed to do with a piece of jewelry? I didn't know anything about power, and I was terrified of what might be waiting for me out there. As I crept toward the lights, I paused behind a large tree, catching my breath. My heart hammered as I peeked around the trunk. The clearing ahead illuminated a scene that sent chills down my spine. There were 5 creatures gathered in a tight circle, whispering among themselves. I recognized the glowing eyes from before, but now they seemed almost sentient, calculating. Each one had elongated limbs and ragged skin that shimmered like oil in the moonlight. They were clawing at the ground, digging frantically into the dirt. The sound made my stomach churn. What were they searching for? Then I caught a glimpse of something glinting in their grasp, a piece of jewelry, not unlike the pendant in my pocket. A surge of disbelief washed over me. They were after the same kind of power. With every fiber of my being, I wanted to run, to hide, but I couldn't move out of fear of drawing their attention. I looked back toward where I had last seen the man. He had said I had to trust myself. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. "What do?" I whispered into the darkness, half hoping for an answer. That's when I felt it. A warmth spreading through me, like the glow of the pendant pressing against my skin. The voices of the creatures shifted, almost as if they could sense the change. I steeled my resolve. I had to confront them. I stepped out from behind the tree, heart racing, clutching the pendant tightly in my fist. The creatures paused, their heads snapping in my direction. Their eyes gleamed with that same ravenous hunger, but there was also something calculating in their gaze. Recognition. "What do you want?" I shouted, trying to sound braver than I felt. The largest one turned, its mouth twisting into a grotesque smile. "You shouldn't have come here, little girl. You don't know what you're dealing with." Fear surged within me, but I took a step closer. I'm not afraid of you. I know about the power. The creatures exchanged glances, confusion momentarily washing over their monstrous faces. Power? One screeched. You have no idea what power means. No, but I'm going to find out, I replied. As the words came out, the pendant in my pocket pulsed with energy. And then everything changed. A blinding flash erupted from the pendant, illuminating the clearing. The creatures recoiled, howling in agony as the light encased them. In that moment, I realized the truth. I might just have the power to stop them. But as they began to retreat, I wondered, was it really power I held, or something more dangerous? Would I find answers, or would I unravel a truth I couldn't face? The growl of the man's warning echoed in my mind. I felt the weight of my choice. Then, from the shadows, a familiar voice broke through. It's time to embrace who you truly are. The man stood there, looking every bit as enigmatic as before, and I knew this was just the beginning. The glow around me faded, leaving the clearing eerie and silent. The creatures had vanished, but their sinister presence lingered in the air. I felt unsteady, the warmth from the pendant fading along with the light that had just burst forth. What was that? I murmured, still panting. The man stepped closer, his expression unreadable. You have a gift, he said, his voice steady. You can wield energy, but it's not without its risks. A gift? I echoed, looking down at the pendant in my hand. It glinted in the moonlight, but I felt no joy, only fear. What if I can't control it? He smiled, but it felt like a mask hiding darker truths. You must learn to embrace it. The energy responds to your intent. If you're afraid, it will twist against you. My pulse raced. What do I do now? The first step is to understand those creatures. They are drawn to power, just like you were moments ago. If they return, you must be prepared. I gulped, imagining their clawed hands reaching for me again. But how? There were 5 of them. 5 weak creatures, he said dismissively. They thrive on fear and chaos. When you confronted them, you showed them you're more than a bystander. Did I really? My stomach twisted. I didn't feel stronger. I felt terrified and vulnerable. What did they want? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. He hesitated, then glanced around as if checking for eavesdroppers. They seek the source of true power. This forest holds ancient magic, and you are intertwined with it. This new revelation sent chills down my spine. How am I intertwined with it? The pendant chose you, he replied. It's a key, but the lock isn't just any door. You must uncover what it leads to. My mind spun with questions. What door? What ancient magic? And why me? Before I could voice another question, a distant rustling from the woods caught my attention. My heart dropped. Had the creatures returned? Stay close, he commanded, glancing toward the sound. Whatever returns, you must stand your ground or risk becoming their prey. I nodded, fear gripping me as I clutched the pendant. Just as I turned to ask him for further instructions, I froze. A shadow slunk from the trees. It was low to the ground, almost gliding, and I could see the glint of those familiar eyes. I lost my breath as more shadows emerged, flanking it on each side. They were back, but this time something was different. There was a depth to their eyes, as if they were calculating, preparing for a fight. Get ready, the man whispered, low and urgent. As they stepped into the clearing, their presence seemed to warp the space around us. I sensed the weight of my choices closing in. Facing them felt unavoidable. Then the largest creature lunged forward, and everything happened in a blur. I braced myself, the pendant pulsing against my chest, urging me to act. Remember, the man said fiercely, trust the power within. I raised the pendant, and before I even knew what I was doing, I let out a shout. The energy surged around me, and I prayed it would be enough. Just then, I noticed something on the ground, barely visible beneath the light. A fragment of the other pendant the creatures had clawed out earlier. The realization hit me hard. If they were after power, I had something they wanted. But why did I feel like I was only standing at the edge of a much darker truth? And as the shadows drew closer, I realized this was an encounter that would change everything, all over again. The moment I shouted, it was as if time froze. The energy from the pendant surged up my arm and burst forth like a flame ignited by desperation. I felt powerful and terrified at once. I wasn't sure if I was using the energy or if it was using me, but I didn't have time to think. The creature that lunged at me stopped midair, caught in a web of shimmering light. Its eyes widened in surprise, as if it hadn't anticipated resistance. The moment gave me a spark of confidence, but that quickly vanished when I heard a low growl rumbling from the other side. The remaining 4 creatures moved closer, their bodies prowling the perimeter of light trapped around the first. They sensed the energy. I could see it in the way their muscles tensed, preparing for an attack. "Concentrate," the man urged, his voice breaking through my panic. "Focus." I nodded, though I felt lost in a storm of fear. My heart thudded in my chest, and doubt clawed at my thoughts. What if I couldn't do this? What if they broke free? The energy around the trapped creature flickered. I swallowed hard, trying to maintain my grip on it. "What do I do?" I shouted back to him, but my voice quivered and it drowned in the tension of the clearing. "Channel it. Picture the force you want to unleash." Images flashed through my mind, binding the creature, pushing it away, even casting it into the shadows where it belonged. I squeezed my eyes shut, trying to harness the chaos swirling inside me. I imagined a barrier surrounding not just the creature, but all of them. With a forceful shout, I directed the energy outward, and a wave of brilliant light erupted from the pendant. It shot forth like a beam, creating a shimmering dome around us. The creatures recoiled, hissing like agitated snakes. I felt the energy shift, and a pulse of strength flowed through me. But then something unexpected happened. The light around the first creature brightened and began to flicker, splitting open. The creature screamed a high-pitched wail that sent a chill down my spine, and with a suddenly freed motion, it lunged towards me. "No!" I cried out, instinctively raising my hands. Suddenly, a searing pain shot through my chest. The pendant felt like it was burning against my skin. Something pulled me forward, and I stumbled out of my protective dome. Before I could react, the creature was upon me, claws swiping at my face. I barely managed to dodge, scraping my arm against its jagged skin. I could feel the rush of adrenaline blaring in my ears. "Stay focused," the man yelled, but his voice felt distant amidst the fear that consumed me. The other creatures took the chance to advance, their movements growing wild and erratic, emboldened by my faltering defense. For a moment, I thought I might fail. A wave of despair washed over me. Then I remembered the fragment I had seen earlier. If they wanted power, maybe I could turn that against them. In a moment of clarity, I reached into my pocket and pulled out the shard, holding it in front of me like a shield. "That's when I saw it," I whispered to myself, determination igniting once more. Maybe their fear of losing power is my advantage. As the creatures closed in, I prepared for one last desperate act, hoping against hope that the pendant would listen to me this time. I was ready to fight for my survival, but at what cost? The darkness loomed larger than ever, and I couldn't shake the feeling that the worst was yet to come. The moment stretched as I gathered my nerve, cradling the pendant and the shard close to my chest. The creatures lunged toward me, their growls mixing with the frantic pounding of my heart. I could feel the raw energy pulsing between the two pieces, a hum vibrating through my body. It was almost as if they were speaking to each other, exchanging secrets I could barely comprehend. "Trust it!" The man's voice rang out through the jumbled chaos, urging me with undeniable conviction. My grip tightened around the silver pendant and the shard, and I began to focus all my energy on the connection between them. The ground trembled beneath me as the creatures drew closer, their fanged mouths stretching into grotesque smiles. I concentrated, forcing the panic aside, remembering the power of the light I had unleashed before. "Go away," I shouted, channeling the instinct to protect myself. The energy pulsed in response, wrapping around me like a second skin. With every ounce of strength, I thrust my hands forward, and the pendant released a blinding burst of light. For a moment, the forest lit up like it was day. The creatures screeched, their forms becoming distorted silhouettes against the brilliance surrounding me. They stumbled back, momentarily disoriented, and that's when I saw it. The space around them rippling and trembling as if the very fabric of reality was shifting. "Now!" the man yelled, his voice filled with urgency. "Bind them!" Gathering my courage, I directed the energy I conjured, imagining it coiling around the forms of the creatures. A shimmering net erupted from my hands, snaring the lead creature and then extending to the others. They began to thrash violently, howling against their etheric bindings. But the more they struggled, the tighter my grip seemed to become. I felt exhilarated. There was power flowing through me, a fierce, fierce energy harnessed from deep within. I could see their fear manifest in their glowing eyes, and the thought sparked something primal within me. But as fast as the exhilaration came, it was replaced with hesitation. I felt a familiar dread creeping back in, the knowledge that I was controlling something I didn't fully understand. I barely grasped the nuances of this newfound power, and doubts twisted in my mind. Would I be able to contain it? What if I lost myself to it? "Focus!" the voice echoed again, a steady reminder against my wavering resolve. I snapped back to the present. The creatures were still writhing, still fighting against the bindings. I couldn't let fear take hold. I had to commit to this. "Let them go," I commanded, finding a voice I didn't know I had. "You have no place here." The pendant hummed, a response to my thinly veiled fear. The energy rippled from my grasp, the binding tight and unwavering. But suddenly, I felt the power within me shift. The rush of light dimmed, and a dark cloud crept over the edges of my consciousness. Whispers of doubt and chaos threatening to pull me back into despair. I clenched my jaw and focused, pushing back the shadows clawing at me. "Enough! This is my choice," I declared, and a fierce determination surged through me. The light emanated intensively, and the creatures screamed, claws raking against the confines of the energy tethering them. But as I held my ground, I noticed the particularly large creature, the leader, was beginning to calm its writhing. It was studying me, its eyes narrowing as it absorbed the glowing light. A realization hit me. These creatures weren't mindless. They were sentient, perhaps perceiving my aura now not as prey, but as a potential ally. "What are you?" I whispered, feeling the weight of the moment. The creature tilted its head slightly, as if trying to communicate beyond a physical form. My heart raced as I took a step closer, the energy vibrating distinctly in my palms. "Why do you seek this power?" In response, the leader sighed, a sound filled with frustration and sorrow. The other creatures ceased their violent struggles, their eyes dimming slightly. It almost felt like we were sharing a moment, a silent understanding suspended in the air. "Power is our survival," it finally emitted, its voice twisting through the air like smoke. "You hold what we seek, but fear entangles us all. You are not our enemy." Before I could react, the others began to echo the sentiment. "Release us," they urged, their voices layered and haunting. "They seek to bind and control us, but we tread on a darker edge of survival, just as you do." This threw me into turmoil. Could I trust them? What did it mean for us all? The man's words flashed back in my mind. There was no clear line between good and evil. I took a shaky breath and glanced toward the glowing snippet of light, the pendant calm against my palm. I wasn't sure whether to surrender the bindings, but I realized that fear had gripped me too long. "What if I let you go?" I asked hesitantly, ready to challenge the depths of my own bravery. "Will you leave this place? Will you return to where you came?" They didn't answer immediately, only watching, their piercing eyes unwavering. But in that quiet moment, I sensed a connection growing, one that defied the chaos that had sought to divide us. The power within me rippled again, whispering for answers. "Time is our only limitation," the leader finally responded, eyes reflecting a flicker of hope. "We seek understanding, but if you set us free, we need your word that you will stand by ours when needed." A pact. It felt surreal, yet something inside me flickered to life. A spark of possibility blossomed out of the fear. "I accept," I said, the words escaping my lips before even contemplating the broader implications. The energy binding the creatures seemed to dissolve, light dissipating into myriad fragments that twinkled like stars against the night sky. Each creature stepped back, respect emanating from their forms, their shadows softening. I felt free, but also burdened. I had crossed an unseen threshold. But behind the calm surface, doubt still lingered. Was this truly a safe passage, or was it just the beginning of an unfolding darkness? And as I stood there, the remnants of tension hanging in the air and the weight of my new responsibility pressing down on my shoulders, I realized that while the immediate danger had passed, the shadows of uncertainty remained, lurking just out of sight. Would they return? Would I be ready when they did? I turned my gaze back toward the moonlit clearing where the man stood, watching with intensity. "Where do we go from here?" And in the lingering silence, a new chapter awaited, one woven in the uncertain fabric of power, choice, and endless questions.